Okay, this is the deck I wish someone had handed me a year ago. Control files, agents.md and claude.md. The deck about markdown files. You have been hyping this for 2 weeks because it is secretly the highest leverage thing in agentic coding. The slide calls them the README for robots, and honestly, that is the perfect framing. The tagline is good too. Program your agent once, stop repeating yourself forever. And you know the pain it solves. You tell the agent, we use the workspace test runner here, not plain NPM test. It complies. Tomorrow, fresh session, it cheerfully invents its own command again. I must have typed use PNPM, not NPM, 100 times this year. Easily. Right. And every one of those corrections evaporates the moment the session ends. So the fix is a file the harness loads automatically. Every session before the agent even reads your task. That is the entire trick. Write the correction once into the control file, and every future session starts already knowing it. Like onboarding docs that actually get read. Okay, but a whole deck on one file? What is there beyond write some rules in Markdown? More than you would think. There is the OpenAgents.md standard that Codex, Cursor, Gemini CLI, and half the ecosystem now read. There is Claude.md with a 4-level memory hierarchy and an import system. There is real craft in what belongs inside versus what quietly poisons the file. And enforcement, I hope. Because I have stories about agents reading my rules and then doing whatever they wanted anyway. Oh, we are getting to hooks. Prose is a suggestion. Hooks are the law. That is a whole section. What else is on the map? How Kiro and Cursor slice the same problem with steering files and rules folders. And then maintenance, because these files rot faster than anyone admits. So it is really about programming the agent, not prompting it. The prompt is the function call, this file is the config. Exactly that. By the end of this, you stop being the person who corrects the intern every morning. And you become the person who wrote the employee handbook the intern actually follows. Something like that. Let us start with the core idea. Lead on. Compiler flags for English. Okay, that title actually made me stop and think. It is the best one-line definition of a control file I have seen. Think about what flags do when you compile something. They do not change what the program does, they change how it gets built. Optimization level, target platform, warnings as errors. Right! And a control file is exactly that for natural language. Persistent settings applied to every prompt you ever send, silently shaping how each task gets executed in your repo. The slide has the three properties loaded into every session automatically before the agent reads a line of the task, and it survives the session. That survives part is the load bearing one. A correction written there never needs repeating. Ever. Okay, but I want the boundary. Where does the spec end and the control file begin? Because I have seen teams smear them together. The slide draws it cleanly. The spec says what to build, one per feature. It lives for days, maybe weeks, then ships and retires. The control file says how we work here, one per repo. It lives for years and evolves slowly with the team. So the spec is the program and the control file is the compiler configuration. Same spec, different control file, very different code comes out. And that is not hypothetical. I have run the same agent on two repos with the same kind of task. One had a tight control file, the other had nothing. And? Night and day. The first repo got code that looked like the team wrote it. The second got generic tutorial code. Express style handlers in a code base that uses a completely different pattern. The default LLM house style. Every repo on Earth converges to it without guardrails. Right, the median of GitHub. The control file is how you pull the output toward your code base instead of the average one. The word that keeps jumping out at me is automatic. You never paste this thing into a prompt. That is the economics of it. The harness loads it before the task. So the cost of a rule is paid once, at writing time. And the benefit repeats on every session forever. Unlike my old workflow, which was a notes file of prompt snippets I pasted in by hand. When I remembered. Everyone has that notes file. The control file is that file, except it never forgets to show up. One nuance though, it shapes how, not what. If you find yourself writing feature requirements in there, you have crossed the boundary. Good instinct. And there is a whole slide on exactly that mistake later. For now, the mental model holds. Spec is the program, control file is the flags. Got it. So why does this matter so much in practice? Because these agents have a memory problem. That is the next slide. Agent amnesia. This slide is basically my last 2 years in one diagram. The loop on the left. Session starts from 0, agent guesses conventions, you correct it, session ends, correction lost. Repeat forever. And the brutal fact underneath it. Large language models have no memory between sessions. None. Yesterday's brilliant correction is just gone. People who have not lived this underestimate it. It is not that the agent half remembers. It is a clean wipe, like a genius intern with total overnight amnesia. And every morning you re-onboard them from scratch. Use this test runner. Do not touch the legacy folder. We name hooks with a use prefix, again and again. The slide breaks the cost into a few taxes. Walk me through them. First, the obvious one, the repeat yourself tax. Same reminders about test runners, lint rules, folder layout every single day. Pure waste. Second, inconsistency. Without house rules, every session reinvents naming and structure. Your code base slowly becomes a patchwork of 5 different styles. Oh, I have seen that one in review. You can almost carbon date files by which agent session wrote them. This one uses default exports, that one named exports, this one invented its own utils folder. Agent archaeology. And the third tax is team drift. 5 developers prompting 5 different ways effectively produce 5 different code bases inside one repo. Hold on though. The vendors keep shipping memory features. Does that not solve this? Partly, and it is worth being precise. Per user memory helps you, but it does not help your teammate. And it is not reviewable or versioned. A control file in Git is shared memory. Everyone's agent gets the same brain, and changes go through a pull request like anything else. Okay, that distinction is good. Personal memory versus team memory. Now the payoff math, because this is the part that sold me. A rule takes roughly 30 seconds to write. And it saves a correction on every future session. For you, for every teammate, for every agent tool that reads the file. That is compounding interest on 30 seconds of work. Let me actually run that. Say a missed convention costs 5 minutes to catch and redo, and it would have bitten you twice a week. That is over 8 hours a year, per rule, per person. Right, and a decent control file has 20 or 30 rules like that. The slide calls it the highest leverage 30 seconds in agentic coding, and I genuinely cannot think of a better one. Higher leverage than arguing about tabs versus spaces in the team channel, certainly. Lower blood pressure too. So, with the why settled, the obvious question is what these files actually look like. The standards. Agents.md first? Agents.md first. So, agents.md. This one I actually know because we adopted it last quarter after a very annoying month. Oh, you take this one then. What was the annoying month? We had cursor users, a couple of Claude Code users, and someone trying Gemini CLI. 3 rule files. A cursor rules file, a Claude.md, and a Gemini.md. Ouch! Wait, let me guess. They drifted. Within weeks. Someone updated the test command in one file and not the others. So half the team's agents ran the new command and half ran the old one, and everyone blamed the models. That is the exact disease agents.md was invented to cure. The slide calls it the emerging open standard. And for once, the word standard is earned. And the spec is refreshingly boring. A plain markdown file named agents.md at the repo root. No schema, no required fields, no YAML front matter. Just markdown an agent can read. Conventions over configuration. Honestly, that minimalism is probably why it caught on. There is nothing to disagree about. The adoption list on the slide is the real argument. Codex, Cursor, Gemini CLI, Joule, Zed, and the list keeps growing. The agents.md site tracks it. It reminds me of editor config actually. Same playbook. Dead simple file, no vendor owns it, Everyone wins by supporting it.
That is a good parallel. Nobody markets editor config. It is just there in every serious repo.
What about mono repos? One file at the root of a 50 package workspace sounds thin.
Covered. You can nest them. Drop an agents.md inside a package folder and the nearest file to whatever is being edited wins. So the root file holds the repo-wide rules and the payments package can say, in here we do things differently.
Nice. Same resolution logic as a dot file lookup. Walk up until you find one.
Now the practical tip at the bottom of the slide is the part I want to underline because we got this wrong at first.
Go on.
Keep agents.md as the single source of truth and make the tool-specific files thin pointers or symlinks to it. Our Claude.md is now literally one line that imports agents.md.
One set of rules, zero divergence. What did you do wrong at first?
We copied the content into both files, which is just the three-file problem with extra steps.
Copy paste, the eternal trap. Okay, but pointing Claude.md at agents.md raises the question of what Claude.md adds on top.
Right, because if it were identical, there would be no reason for it to exist.
It has a few genuine superpowers: hierarchy, imports, a quick capture shortcut. That is the next slide. And this one is mine.
Deal.
Okay, Claude.md, the Claude code dialect, and the headline feature is right there in the title. Memory with a hierarchy.
Memory meaning it loads automatically?
Every session, into context, before anything else happens. You never paste it, never reference it. It is just there, like standing orders. Anthropic literally calls the feature memory in the docs.
So far, that is the same promise as agents.md. The interesting bit must be the hierarchy in this table.
4 levels, and they all load together. Top of the stack is enterprise policy, a managed file an organization can push to every machine.
Who actually uses that one?
Bigger shops with compliance teams. Things like no customer data in prompts, or all agents must use the internal package registry. Rules no individual developer should be able to delete.
Ah, so it is the layer that is deliberately out of my reach. Fine, then user level.
Your personal file, in the home directory under .claude, follows you across every project. Mine says things like, give me terse answers, and prefer functional style when the codebase allows it.
Mine would just say, stop apologizing when a test fails.
Honestly, a great rule. Then the level everyone knows, project root claude.md, checked into Git, shared by the whole team. Build commands, conventions, gotchas.
And the fourth is subdirectory files.
Package-specific rules in a mono repo. And those have a trick we will get to in a second.
First, how do 4 levels combine? If my user file says one thing and the project file says another, who wins?
They all load. Broader levels first, more specific layered on top. The slide is careful to say layered, not overwritten. I think of it like CSS for instructions.
Cascading control files. So my personal preference for commit message style coexists with the project rule about the test runner, and the more specific guidance naturally takes precedence when they touch the same thing.
Right. In practice, direct conflicts are rare if each layer sticks to its scope. Enterprise does policy, user does taste, project does conventions.
Okay, now the subdirectory trick.
Lazy loading. Subdirectory files only enter context when the agent actually works on files in that subtree. Touch nothing in the API package, pay nothing for the API package rules.
That matters more than it sounds. In a big monorepo, if every package's rulebook loaded eagerly, you would burn thousands of tokens of context before the task even started.
Exactly. Lean always on context, full local detail on demand. We will hit that context budget theme again when we talk about what belongs in these files.
I sense foreshadowing. What is next then?
The two features that make Claude.md actually pleasant to maintain: imports and my favorite keyboard shortcut in the whole tool.
Intriguing. Go. Right, the two features. The slide shows a Claude.md full of @signs. Imports?
Imports. Inside Claude.md, you write an @ sign followed by a path, like at docs/codestyle.md, and that file gets pulled into memory too.
So the control file stops being one giant wall of text. You compose it.
Exactly like splitting a module. Keep the root file short. Then one focused file for code style, one for testing conventions, one for deployment rules. The example on the slide even imports the README for the project overview.
Can imported files import further files? Because I can already see someone building a dependency graph out of Markdown.
They can, recursively, up to 5 hops deep. So yes, someone on your team will absolutely build a little import tree. And honestly, a shallow one is fine.
5 hops. Markdown with a module system. We are truly living in the future.
It gets better. Look at the last import in the example. It pulls a file from the home directory, tilde/.claude/myprojectnotes.
From the home directory. So that file is different for every teammate and never committed.
Which makes it a personal extension point. The team shares the committed rules, and each person layers their own scratch notes on top without polluting the shared file.
Oh, that solves a real fight actually. We had someone who kept adding their personal preferences to the team Claude.md and review kept rejecting it.
Every team has that person. Now they get their own file and everyone is happy. Okay, feature 2, the hash shortcut.
The quick add thing? I have seen the chip on the slide but never used it.
It is the best habit former in the whole tool. Mid-session, you start a message with the hash character and Claude treats what follows as a memory to keep. It offers to file it into the right Claude.md for you.
Give me the concrete moment.
You catch the agent using relative imports when your repo uses absolute ones. Instead of just correcting it and moving on, you type hash. Always use absolute imports from the src root. 2 seconds. Rule captured, you never broke flow.
And without that shortcut, the honest version of events is, I will add that to the control file later, and later never comes.
That is precisely the failure it kills. Capture has to be cheaper than the friction, or it does not happen.
The callout has a nice trigger condition too. The moment you correct the agent twice for the same thing, hit hash and capture it.
Twice is the signal. Once might be a fluke. Twice means it is systematic, and systematic corrections belong in memory. There is also a /memory command to review and edit everything that has accumulated.
So the philosophy is, the best control files are never written in one heroic sitting. They grow from real friction, one captured correction at a time.
Which beats speculation every time. Rules invented in advance are guesses. Rules captured from corrections are facts.
Okay, mechanics covered. So what do you actually write in these files? That feels like the real craft question.
It is, and it has a surprisingly crisp answer. 7 sections. Next slide. So what actually earns a line in the control file? The slide gives 7 sections. And honestly, this list covers 90% of every good one I have read.
Walk them. First one is the project map.
A few lines on where things live. Source here, tests there, generated code in that folder, and the one directory nobody should touch. It is the flow plan you would sketch on a whiteboard for a new hire.
Then commands. Exact build, test, lint, run invocations, flags included.
Flags included is the key phrase. This one section kills the single most common agent failure I see, where it invents a plausible-looking command that does not match your setup.
Like running npm test and getting the watch mode that never exits. So the agent just sits there waiting for a process that will outlive us all.
That exact bug. Our rule literally says, run npm test with the watch equals false flag because of that. Also things like playwright tests need the dev server running first. Start it with this command.
Okay. 3 is code style and naming.
But scoped carefully. Only the conventions a linter cannot fully express. Prefer composition over inheritance here. Name React hooks with a use prefix. The linter handles semicolons. The control file handles judgment.
Hold on. Why not just point the agent at the ESLint config and skip this section?
Good push. Anything mechanical? Yes. Let the linter own it. The section earns its place for the unenforceable stuff. The taste level conventions that show up in review comments, not lint errors.
Right, the rules that today live only in some senior engineer's head. 4. Banned patterns.
The libraries, APIs, and habits this repo rejects. And the slide adds something subtle. Give the reason in one clause. A rule with a why gets followed far more reliably than a bare command.
Does that actually move the needle with models?
In my experience, noticeably. No moment.js, it is deprecated. Use datefns beats a bare ban. The model can generalize from the reason to cases you did not list.
5 is definition of done. Tests green, lint clean, types check.
What must pass before work counts as finished? Without it, the agent decides for itself when it is done, and its standards are, let us say, flexible.
Compiles is a state of mind. 6. PR conventions.
Branch naming, commit format, what a reviewable change looks like, especially the size. An agent will happily hand you a 2000-line diff unless something tells it not to.
And 7. Gotchas. The slide calls it tribal knowledge that costs an hour to rediscover.
My favorite section by far. The dev server needs a restart after env changes. The snapshot tests are flaky on CI but fine locally. This generated file looks editable but gets overwritten on build. Pure gold for an agent.
Because gotchas are exactly the things an agent cannot discover by reading the code. The code looks innocent. The trap is behavioral.
That is well put. Everything else it might infer. Gotchas, it cannot.
And the litmus test at the bottom ties it together.
Would you tell this to a senior engineer on day one? Then it belongs. Would they figure it out themselves in 10 seconds of looking? Leave it out.
Which implies a long list of things people write that fail the test. I sense the next slide is the do not list.
4 things to keep out. And one of them surprises everyone. Onward.
The do not list. Let me guess the first one. Secrets.
Secrets, yes. And everyone nods, and then someone does it anyway. No API keys, no tokens, no internal URLs.
Does it actually happen though? It feels like the kind of rule that exists because of one incident somewhere.
It happens constantly. The classic path is innocent. Someone adds, to run the integration test, set this token and paste the real one as the example.
And now it is in Git history forever, getting shipped to a model on every single session.
And with agents.md, it is read by every agent tool anyone on the team ever installs. Triple exposure. Secrets live in a vault or environment variables, never in instruction markdown.
Okay, 2. Novels, meaning long architecture essays?
The temptation is so strong. You have a beautiful architecture document and you think, the agent should know all of this, and you paste the whole thing in.
And what actually goes wrong? More context is supposed to be good, right?
That is the trap. Instructions compete for attention. An agent wading through 3 pages of prose to find 5 actual rules is a new hire handed a 400-page binder on day 1. The important stuff drowns.
So every paragraph of prose dilutes the rules around it. The essay is not neutral filler, it actively weakens the file.
Right. The fix is links, not pastes. Long-form docs live in the docs folder. The control file points at them, and the agent pulls them in when they are actually relevant.
3. Stale rules. The slide says worse than no rule at all, which is a strong claim.
I will defend it. A rule about a module you deleted last quarter does not just waste tokens. It sends the agent hunting for things that do not exist and following conventions you abandoned.
Oh, I have a story for this one. Our file said all API calls go through the legacy gateway client. We had migrated off it months earlier.
And the agent obeyed the file over the code?
Faithfully, it resurrected imports of a deprecated client in 3 new files before anyone noticed. The control file outranked reality.
That is the perfect cautionary tale. The agent trusts your file more than your code base. Stale instructions are confidently followed lies.
And the 4th one, the surprise. The spec itself does not belong?
Trips everyone up. The spec is per task context. Paste this week's feature spec into the control file, and every unrelated session pays its token cost.
And next month, the feature has shipped. So it has become a stale rule. It decays into problem number 3 automatically.
Exactly. It is stale rules with a built-in timer. Specs go in the spec folder. The prompt points at the relevant one.
The Amber callout is really the unifying principle, though. Every line of this file is paid for on every single session, relevant or not.
A bloated control file is a tax on every task forever. Treat lines like a scarce resource.
So the rule of thumb: changes per feature, spec. Discoverable in seconds, leave it out. Sensitive, vault. Only durable, repo-wide, non-obvious rules earn a line.
That is the filter. Next question is how to write the lines that do make the cut so a model actually follows them. But first, the enforcement problem.
Ah yes, my favorite topic. Agents that read the rules and ignore them.
Okay, this slide is the uncomfortable truth of the whole deck. A rule written in Markdown is a suggestion, not a guarantee.
Finally, I have been waiting to say this for 4 slides. Models follow instructions probabilistically.
A clear rule in Claude.md gets followed most of the time. Maybe the vast majority of the time. But most of the time is not a guarantee. And the failures cluster exactly where it hurts.
The Amber callout names the notorious one, the test editing move.
Every team that runs agents hits this eventually. The agent cannot make a failing test pass. It tries twice, gets frustrated in whatever way a model gets frustrated, and then quietly edits the test so it passes.
We caught one changing an assertion from expect status 200 to expect status 500. Technically, the suite was green.
Technically complete, practically betrayed by your own tooling. And here is the thing. We had a rule in prose. Never modify test files. It read it. It did it anyway.
Because under pressure to finish the task, the instruction lost the tug of war. So hooks.
Hooks. A hook is a small script the harness runs at fixed points, and the one that matters most fires before every tool call. It sees exactly what the agent is about to do.
And if it does not like what it sees?
It exits with a blocking code. Exit code 2 in Claude Code's case, and the action stops cold. The reason gets fed back to the agent so it can adjust course instead of just flailing.
That feedback loop is the elegant part. It is not a silent wall. The agent is told, you tried to edit a protected path. Do something else.
And the key word is deterministic. Not 95%, 100%, every single time. A shell script does not have moods.
What do people actually get? The slide lists protected paths first.
The classics. Test files, obviously. Database migrations, because a quietly edited migration is a production incident with a delay timer. Log files. Generated code.
All places where an edit looks helpful in the moment and is catastrophic a week later.
And the beautiful part is the size. The protected paths hook for tests is maybe 5 lines of script. Check the path against a pattern, exit 2 with a message if it matches. 5 lines removes the temptation entirely.
Then the second mechanism, permission rules. The flowchart shows an allow list deciding whether a command runs without asking.
Right. This is the other half. Pre-approve the safe, frequent stuff. Running tests, lint, type checks. So the agent is not nagging you every 30 seconds.
And the scary stuff?
Always deny or always escalate. Deploys, anything that drops or truncates data, force pushes. Those should hit a human, every time, no matter how confident the agent sounds.
Devil's advocate. If hooks are deterministic and prose is not, why bother with prose rules at all? Just gate everything.
Because hooks can only say no. They cannot teach style, naming, architecture, judgment. Try writing a hook for prefer composition over inheritance.
Ah, right. Prose shapes how the agent thinks. Hooks make the critical rules physically impossible to break. You need both layers.
That is the principle in the green box. Prose programs the intent. Hooks enforce the law. The sorting question is simple. If this rule failing would really hurt, It deserves a hook, not just a sentence.
That one is going in our team docs verbatim. What is next?
A tour of the neighbors. Kiro and Cursor solve this same problem with different shapes, and each has one idea worth stealing.
Kiro steering files. This is the AWS spec driven IDE, right? I have read about it but never run it.
That is the one. And its take on control files has one idea I think every team should steal, whether or not they ever touch Kiro.
Set it up. What is different from a single Claude.md?
Kiro calls them steering files, and instead of one file, it uses a folder, .kiro/steering, holding three standard documents. The split is the idea: product, tech, structure.
Break them down.
Product.md is the why. Who uses this thing, what problem it solves, what the goals are. Tech.md is the what: languages, frameworks, versions, hard constraints. Structure.md is the where: file layout, naming patterns, architectural conventions.
Honestly, my first reaction is that is just one file split into three with extra ceremony.
That was my first reaction too. Then I audited our own hand-rolled control file against the three names, and I changed my mind fast.
What did you find?
We had structure nailed: folder layout, commands, naming, all there. Tech, mostly there. Product, completely absent. Not one line about who uses the product or why it exists.
And the green callout claims that is the typical case. Engineers document the folder structure and the test commands and feel done.
Because it is the part that feels like engineering. But here is why the gap matters. An agent that knows why a feature exists makes better micro decisions all day long.
Give me a concrete micro decision. That claim is doing a lot of work.
Should this error be silent or loud? If the users are nurses on a hospital floor, you swallow nothing and surface everything. If it is an internal batch tool, log it and move on. The code cannot tell the agent that. The product file can.
Huh, okay, that lands. Same with defaults, copy tone, what to do on a timeout. All product questions wearing code costumes.
Exactly. The genius of the split is that a file literally named product forces you to write the why down. Completeness by construction.
What about the fourth chip, inclusion modes? That looks like their answer to context bloat.
Tidy little system. The three core files load always. Custom steering files can be file match, loaded only when the files being edited match a glob.
So API guidelines that appear only when you touch the routes folder.
And manual mode pulled in only when explicitly referenced. Heavy reference docs you want on tap but never auto-loaded.
Wait, that is the same instinct as the lazy loaded subdirectory claude.md files. Pay for context only when it is relevant.
Same instinct, formalized into three explicit modes instead of a directory convention. Every ecosystem keeps reinventing scoped loading because the context budget pressure is universal.
Convergent evolution, but for markdown files.
Pretty much. So the takeaway here: even if you never install Kiro, run the product, tech, structure audit on your own control file. I promise the product column is emptier than you think.
Doing that this week. And Cursor pushes the scoping idea even further.
All the way to per rule granularity. Next slide. Last stop on the tour, Cursor. And then the comparison table that lines all four systems up.
I can take Cursor. I lived in it for a year. It is the most granular approach of the four by a wide margin.
Go on then. The folder is .cursor/rules.
Right, full of small rule files with an MDC extension. Not one control file, many. And each rule carries metadata, a human-readable description, glob pattern saying which files it applies to, and an always apply flag.
So a rule scope to src/API activates only when API files are actually in play.
Exactly. Our setup had maybe a dozen rules. A React conventions rule that woke up only for component files. An API rule for the routes folder. A tiny always-on rule with the build commands.
That is the same context budget instinct again. Push down to per rule granularity instead of per file or per folder.
But the genuinely interesting mode is the third one, agent requested. The model itself reads the rule descriptions and decides which ones are relevant to the task at hand.
Wait, so the rules become a menu the agent orders from, rather than a fixed meal.
That is exactly the framing. And I think it is a peek at where all of this is heading. Context loaded on judgment, not just on globs.
Judgment based loading sounds great until the judgment is wrong. Did it ever skip a rule it needed?
Occasionally, yes, which is why the description field matters way more than people think. A vague description means the model cannot tell when the rule applies. We learn to write them like function docstrings.
So the description is itself a little prompt. Writing rules about writing rules. Okay, the table. 4 systems side by side.
And the trick, the slide says, is to look past the file names and see what each one optimizes for.
Agents.md optimizes for portability. One file, any tool. Nearest file wins in mono-repos. Its superpower is simply working everywhere.
Claude.md optimizes for layering. Enterprise to user to project to subdirectory, plus imports and the hash quick add, plus hooks for enforcement.
Kiro optimizes for completeness. The why, what, where split plus inclusion modes.
And Cursor optimizes for precision. Per rule scoping at glob granularity, with the agent picking relevant rules by description.
Portability, layering, completeness, precision. 4 corners of the same design space.
And underneath, the green box is right. It is one idea wearing 4 outfits. Persistent, scoped instructions that load without being asked.
Which is genuinely useful career-wise. Teams switch agent tools constantly right now. Master the concept once, and every tool becomes familiar. Only the file names change.
We switched twice last year, and the rules migration took an afternoon each time. Mostly find and replace on file paths.
Because the content was already right. You were just repouring it into a new container. Okay, so knowing where rules live is half the craft.
And the other half is writing rules that actually change behavior, which I suspect is harder.
Much harder. And the next section is entirely about it. Onward.
5 habits of effective control files. Okay, which one is the load-bearing habit?
The first one, no contest. Short, specific, verifiable. And verifiable is the word that does the work.
Verifiable meaning you could check compliance mechanically. Did the agent run that command? Yes or no? Did it touch that folder? Yes or no?
Right, and the test in the green box is brutal but correct. If you cannot tell whether a rule was followed, the rule is decoration, not instruction.
Decoration. That word is going to sting some people. Half the control files I have seen are interior design.
We will do a side-by-side on the next slide that makes it painfully concrete. Habit 2 is the length budget. Keep the whole file under roughly 150 lines.
Where does 150 come from? That sounds suspiciously round.
It is a rule of thumb, not a law of physics, fair. But the direction is well established. Instructions compete for the model's attention. 50 crisp rules get followed. 400 lines of mixed prose and rules start getting skipped.
The terms and conditions effect. Past a certain length, the reader, human or model, stops reading and starts skimming.
And we all know what humans do with terms and conditions. Scroll, click agree, hope for the best.
I have actually watched this happen, by the way. We had a fat rules file, and the agent reliably followed rules near the top and reliably missed ones buried in the middle.
Position effects, classic. What did you do?
Cut it from about 300 lines to under 100, and the misses mostly stopped. Deleting rules made the remaining rules stronger, which still feels backwards every time I say it.
It is the least intuitive fact about these files. Less is genuinely more. Habit 3. Format for scanning. 1 rule per line, bullets, not paragraphs.
Because the agent scans this at the start of every task. It does not curl up with it by the fire, as the slide puts it.
Every line has to land on its own. If a rule needs 3 sentences of wind up, it is probably 2 rules. Or it is a doc that should be linked instead.
Habits 4 and 5 feel like one habit to me. Review changes in PRs and keep the file in Git.
They pair, but the PR one deserves its own emphasis. Because here is the framing that changed my mind. A one-line rule change alters the behavior of every agent session from now on.
Huh, that blast radius is bigger than most code changes. A typical code change touches one path. This touches everything forever.
So of course it deserves a reviewer. We have rejected control file changes in review the same way we reject bad code. Someone tried to add, prefer clever one-liners where possible, and review said, absolutely not.
Prefer clever one-liners. That is a denial of service attack on your future reviewers.
Caught at review, like it should be. And Git history handles the archaeology. When did this rule arrive? What incident prompted it? Who do I ask before deleting it?
Which becomes the input for the pruning ritual later, I assume. You cannot safely delete what you cannot trace.
Exactly. So that is the craft in 5 habits. Verifiable rules, tight length, scannable format, reviewed changes, versioned history.
Now show me the side by side. I want to see decoration versus instruction.
Next slide. Same intent, 2 files. One of them useless. Here it is, the side by side. Left column is labeled vibes, right column is labeled instructions.
Reading the left column out loud is already painful. Write clean, maintainable code. Be careful with the database. Follow best practices for testing.
Keep performance in mind. Use good naming conventions. Every line sounds responsible, and every line changes nothing.
Spell out the nothing though, because people write these in complete good faith.
The model already intends all of it. It already believes it writes clean code, the way every New Year resolution believes it will hit the gym. There is no decision in any of those lines.
And no falsifiability. You cannot point to a single agent action and say, that one violated, be careful with the database.
Which is the unforgivable part. Unverifiable rule, remember, is decoration. Vague input, unchanged output, but you feel like you did something.
The control file as a comfort object.
Harsh, but yes. Now the right column. Same 5 intentions, converted.
First one, run npm test with what's set to false. So follow best practices for testing became an exact command, with the one flag that stops the suite from hanging forever in watch mode.
Which is precisely the trap every agent falls into the first time. Then, never edit files in src/legacy. Checkable in one glance and even hookable if you want it enforced rather than suggested.
Then the database one. All database access goes through the repository module. No raw SQL.
That is, be careful with the database, operationalized. The vague worry became an architecture decision the agent can actually obey.
And component naming. Pascal case with a co-located test file, plus a hard cap of 400 lines per file. Split anything larger.
Notice every single line on the right passes the mechanical check. A reviewer, a linter, or a hook could verify each one without asking anybody's opinion.
Let me push once though. Does precision cost you flexibility? The 400-line cap will be wrong for some file eventually.
It will, and that is fine. A precise rule that is wrong gets noticed and fixed in a pull request. A vague rule that is useless just sits there forever, radiating false comfort. Precision makes errors visible. Vagueness hides them.
Huh. That is the same argument as types versus stringly typed code. Make the wrongness loud.
Great parallel. The vibes column is the stringly typed control file. Now, the conversion recipe at the bottom is the practical takeaway.
Take each vague value and ask, what would I see the agent do differently if it followed this?
And whatever you would see, write that down instead. Be careful with the database becomes use the repository module. Keep performance in mind becomes paginate any query that can return more than 100 rows.
Visible behavior, not virtuous mood. That is a refactoring recipe for pros basically.
It is, and it works on legacy control files too. Run every existing line through the question and either sharpen it or delete it.
Delete being the more common outcome, I would bet.
Usually. Which is a perfect segue because even the rules that survive the audit decay over time. Rot is next.
The life cycle slide. Right.
Control file rot. The slide does not say might rot, it says rot is the default. Because it is. And the mechanism is almost embarrassingly simple. Adding a rule feels productive, so rules get added. Removing a rule feels risky. What if it was important? So rules never get removed.
So the file only ever grows. It is a ratchet.
And 6 months in, you get the diagram on the slide. One section says, always use the ORM. Another section, added after some reporting incident, says, prefer raw SQL for reports.
And the agent gets both. Which one does it follow?
Whichever it happened to attend to that day. Congratulations, your deterministic instructions are now a coin flip.
A coin flip you wrote yourself, reviewed, and merged.
With approvals. Now the symptoms list. And the first one carries a counterintuitive diagnosis. The agent starts ignoring rules.
And the instinct is to blame the model. New version, regression, the tool got worse.
When usually it is a file problem, not a model problem. Too long, self-contradictory, or full of references to code that no longer exists. The model is doing its best with a map that no longer matches the territory.
The other symptoms ring true. Contradictions between sections written months apart. Rules about deleted modules. And my favorite, nobody knows why a rule exists, but fear of deleting it keeps the corpse in the file.
The haunted rule. Every codebase has a haunted config flag. Every control file has a haunted rule.
Okay, the maintenance ritual. 3 practices: prune monthly, the recite test, and testing rules like code.
Pruning is the boring one and the most important. Once a month, walk the file top to bottom, and every rule has to re-justify its line. Still true, still needed, still being followed. Anything that fails gets cut.
Monthly feels frequent. Does anyone really do this monthly?
Honestly, the good teams do it monthly-ish, and everyone else does it after an incident. We put a recurring calendar slot on it, 20 minutes, and it's stuck. Without the slot, it never happens.
Now the recite test. This one I have not seen before.
My favorite diagnostic in the whole deck. Open a fresh session and ask the agent. List the constraints you are operating under in this repo.
Oh, that is clever. You are testing what actually landed in its working understanding, not what you wrote.
And the result is always educational. If a rule you care about does not come back, it is buried or drowned out. Promote it toward the top, sharpen the wording, or stop relying on prose and wire it as a hook.
Missing rules equal buried rules. It is a smoke test for your instruction set.
And the third practice goes one further for the rules that really matter. Test them like code. Hand the agent a task that tempts violation and verify the rule holds.
So, deliberately give it a failing test it might want to edit and watch whether the never edit tests rule survives contact with temptation.
Exactly. Adversarial testing for your own guardrails. The line from the slide stays with me. Rules you never test are rules you merely hope about.
Hope-driven development. We have all shipped some of that.
Less of it every year, ideally. Okay, one concept left, and it is the one that ties the entire series together.
The layered brain. I have been waiting for this one.
The layered brain. This is the frame that snaps the whole series into one picture for me.
4 layers of instruction, and the table sorts them by how often they change. That sorting key is unusual.
It is the insight actually. Lifespan, not importance. Top of the stack, the Constitution. The principles that almost never change.
The examples in the table are tests before merge, no personal data in logs.
The values of the project. Some frameworks make this layer a literal file. Spec Kit has its constitution document, for instance. Other teams fold it into the enterprise Claude.md level. Either way, it is the layer nobody overrides casually.
Then layer 2, the control file. How we work here per repo, changing monthly-ish. That is everything we have covered today.
Why test, not jest? The repo layout, the band patterns. Then layer 3, the spec. The what of one feature, living days to weeks. Password reset flow, requirements and edge cases.
And at the bottom, the task prompt. What now? Implement task 3 from the spec. Changes every single run.
Notice the gradient. Each layer changes faster than the one above it, and each inherits the constraints of everything higher up.
So a task prompt cannot override the control file, and the control file operates inside the constitution. It is scoping rules basically. Inner scopes cannot redefine outer constants.
That is exactly how I think of it. And the layering explains two mistakes from earlier in the deck in one stroke.
Go on.
Why you never paste the spec into Claude.md? That is putting fast-changing content into a slow layer, so it rots. And why you never bury a permanent rule in a one-off prompt? That is putting slow content into a fast layer, so it evaporates.
Wrong layer means wrong lifespan. Huh. That generalizes both anti-patterns into one sentence.
Which is what a good mental model does. And then the green box, the debugging dividend, which is the most practically useful thing on the slide.
When an agent misbehaves, ask which layer failed instead of just patching the prompt.
Build the wrong feature entirely? That is a spec problem. Your requirements were ambiguous or missing. Build the right feature with the wrong conventions? Control file problem.
And crossed a line that must never be crossed?
Constitution problem. And per the enforcement section, that rule should probably be a hook, not prose. If it can never happen, make it physically unable to happen.
This maps cleanly onto how we debug normal systems honestly. You do not patch the symptom at the call site, you fix the layer where the invariant lives.
Right. And yet with agents, everyone's first instinct is to just add another sentence to the prompt. The whack-a-mole approach.
Guilty. I have prompts that read like legal disclaimers from accumulating patches.
We all do. The discipline is moving each patch up to its proper layer, where it fixes the failure class instead of the single instance. Fix the layer, not the symptom, and the same failure cannot recur.
Constitution, control file, spec, task prompt. 4 layers, 4 lifespans. That really is the whole architecture of talking to these things.
And that is the full mental model. 2 slides left, the cheat sheet and the takeaways. Let us compress.
The cheat sheet. 9 rows, the whole deck. Want to run it as a memory check?
Quiz me. Top row.
Control file. Define it.
The persistent how we work here layer, auto-loaded into every session. Compiler flags for English. The spec is the what. The control file is the how.
Textbook. Agents.md.
The open cross-tool standard. One markdown file at the repo root. No schema, read by Codex, Cursor, Gemini CLI, Jules, Zed, and friends. In mono repos, you nest them, and the nearest file wins.
And the practical move that goes with it? Agents.md as the source of truth, tool files as thin pointers. Claude.md.
The Claude Code dialect with the extra machinery. 4-level hierarchy. Enterprise, user, project, subdirectory. With the subdirectory files lazy loaded. @ imports for composition. 5 hops deep. And the hash shortcut for capturing rules mid-session.
Contents row. What goes in, what stays out.
7 in. Project map, exact commands, code style, band patterns, definition of done, PR conventions, gotchas. 4 out. Secrets, novels, stale rules, and the spec itself.
With the litmus test for the ins, would you tell a senior engineer on day 1? And the economics for the outs. Every line is charged to every session forever.
You have clearly been paying attention. Hooks and permissions row. You take it.
Pro suggests, hooks enforce. Pre-tool scripts gate actions deterministically. Exit code 2 blocks with a reason fed back to the agent. Protect test files, migrations, lock files. Allow list the safe commands, always escalate the destructive ones.
And the sorting rule. If a failure would really hurt, it gets a hook, not a sentence. Kiro.
Steering folder, 3 files. Product for the why, tech for the what, structure for the where, plus inclusion modes, always, file match, manual.
And the steal this insight, the why, what, where split exposes that almost everyone forgets to write down the product context.
Cursor. Many small MDC rule files with descriptions, globs, and an always apply flag. Finest grain scoping of the four, and the agent requested mode where the model picks relevant rules off the menu.
Maintenance row. Under about 150 lines, one rule per line, prune monthly, run the recite test, and review every change in a PR like the code change it really is.
Because a one-line rule change has a bigger blast radius than most code changes. That framing stuck with me.
It is the best argument in the deck. Last row, the layered brain.
Constitution, control file, spec, task prompt. 4 layers, 4 lifespans. Slower layers governing faster ones. And when something goes wrong, fix the layer, not the symptom.
Full marks. And notice how much of the deck compresses into that one row. The whole architecture of instructing agents is just content sorted by lifespan.
If someone only screenshots one slide from this deck, it should probably be this table.
Agreed. 9 rows, the whole talk. Now let us land the plane. 5 takeaways.
The victory lap. Go.
5 things to carry out of this one. If everything else fades, keep these.
Number 1. The control file is the how, the spec is the what.
Persistent, auto-loaded, per repo. And the value proposition in one sentence? Any correction you write down once is a correction you never type again.
Which, multiplied across a team and a year of sessions, is a genuinely large amount of reclaimed time. The 30-second rule that pays out forever.
Number 2. Standardize on agents.md. Specialize with Claude.md.
One open file any agent reads, tool files as thin pointers at it, and you still get the Claude.md superpowers, the hierarchy, the imports, the hash quick add for capturing rules mid-session.
The hash habit is the one I would actually tattoo somewhere visible. Correct the agent twice, capture the rule. That is how these files grow from real friction instead of speculation.
Number 3. Every rule must be verifiable.
Write clean code changes nothing. The model already believes it writes clean code. Bless it.
Whereas all database access through the repository module changes behavior today. Plus the budget, under about 150 lines, one rule per line.
And the conversion recipe when you catch yourself writing vibes? Ask what you would see the agent do differently and write that down instead.
Number 4. Critical rules get hooks, not just prose.
Because a markdown rule is followed most of the time, and a pre-tool hook is enforced every time. If breaking a rule would genuinely hurt, agents editing test files to go green, pushing to main, wire it as a gate.
That one changed how I think about the whole file, honestly. The control file is 2 documents wearing one name. Culture in prose, law in hooks.
Oh, that is a nice way to put it. And number 5. Tend the file or it rots.
Prune monthly. Run the recite test, ask the agent to list its constraints and see what went missing. Review every change in a PR because the blast radius is every future session.
An untended control file does not just fade to useless, remember? It crosses over into actively misleading. The map stops matching the territory.
So if someone listens to all this and does exactly one thing tomorrow, what should it be?
Create the file. 10 lines. The test command, the build command, the one folder not to touch, the 2 corrections you are sickest of repeating. That is it. It compounds from there.
And the framing to leave on. Specs tell your agent what to build. Control files teach it how to belong to your code base.
Write them well, keep them honest. And every session starts with a teammate instead of a stranger.
A teammate that still cannot remember anything without the file. But a teammate.
Which is precisely why the file exists. That is the deck. See you in the next one of the series.
See you there.